Today we're going to create the glue blob for our Too Much Glue art project. We're going to start with a white piece of paper and we're going to draw a blob shape using wavy lines. I do want this shape to take up a lot of the paper, as much as I can. And I can erase and adjust until I like the shape that I have for my glue. If you want to add a few little extra glue shapes to the edge, that is a great idea. You can add these to the outside edges of your project later on. Next step is I'm going to cut these out. Some of these glue shapes can be pretty tricky to cut out, so take your time and try to cut as close to the line as you can. I always make sure that I'm using my helper hand to turn the paper as I cut. So my scissor hand stays pointing straight the whole time, and my helper hand turns the paper as it needs to turn. That makes cutting out tricky shapes like this so much easier. Now, after you have all of your glue shapes, we're going to add a little bit of blue detail around the side to make it look like it's a wet glob of glue. To do this, all you need to do is outline your shape with a few dashed lines. They can be some big dashes and some little dashes. You don't have to put them everywhere, but they're just following the shape of my glue glob. Kind of makes it look a little bit wet and a little bit three-dimensional, like it's a real glue puddle sitting there on the table. After you have done your outline, we're going to start gluing on different items to our glue shapes. Now, there's two important things I want you to remember today. First of all, we are not using real glue globs on our paper. We're going to be gluing on all of these things with tiny glue dots. Also, do not lift up your paper while you are gluing, because these objects will not be secure until they've rested overnight. So keep your paper flat on the table and use tiny glue dots. Now, we want to glue on a lot of fun items to our paper, but we also want to be able to still see the glue shape when we're done. I'm actually going to be using a black glue shape for this lesson, which might seem kind of silly, but that way you'll be able to see how tiny my glue dots are a lot easier. So I'm just going to twist this open and squeeze out a tiny dot wherever I want to glue something. And I like to start with my largest items first and then add the smaller items around it to make sure that I have space. So I'm just going to add a few small dots for my pencil, my little scrap pencil that we're using for the art project. And I'm going to set it on those dots, and then I'm not going to touch it. Same thing for my crayon. I'm going to decide where I want it. Add just a couple small dots, and then set it on there, and then don't touch it. I'm going to keep on going, adding small dots for buttons, small dots for scraps of paper, and small dots for yarn as well. It's also a good idea to keep your hands clean as you're doing this activity, because if you get too sticky with your fingers, the objects are going to want to stick to you instead of your paper. Remember, don't pick up your glue glob until you are all finished with your project. When you're all done, carefully put back all the items that you didn't use where they belong. And then we are going to very, very carefully put our glue puddles onto our drying mat. Be very careful as you do this, because like I said, these pieces aren't dry, and if you flip them upside down, they are going to fall off. So keep them nice and flat as you transfer them, and then your pieces will be ready for the drying rack.